Buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, thank you to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, I appreciate every one of you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video to help support the message. Thank you. Well, everyone, getting right into the topic I am. Today, I want to just show you a little bit more of an in-look on how it used to be, right? At least in the sense when Billies basically attacked each other behind the scenes by taking out a good camarada, right? And this one's gonna circle around Toro, Turtle from Colton, homie Toker and Scrappy from East Side Riva. But anyways, allow me to take you back to Tehachapi, right? Tehachapi Shoe. I mentioned it before in past stories. I had a celly. I need to backtrack and see if I already put it out here with you guys. If not, I will touch on it. That got there with something and I ended up moving in with them, right? And anyways, right after this incident, I moved in with a homie, Toker, right, from East Arriba. He was a good, solid homie. We were on the concrete yard together, and he had gotten there from Calipat with the Medina incident. The paisa that was running, well, both Ramflas, homies and paisanos. And, well, people didn't like it, they ended up moving on him, right? And then there was, of course, a negative ricochet on them individuals, and it's why the homie was back there for, right? Anyways, we were sold out, and T was still, Toro from Cucamonga was still there with us. Just we weren't vent neighbors no more. We were down the tier from each other, right? Like I stated before, on one side we had the Pili choppers from 18, Chaparro, del 18, and next door was Snoopy from 18, and Chino from Azusa. And then there was the homies. Excuse me. But anyways, as we were there in the cell, you could say, I see now things kind of played out, right? And Toker did a lot of promises, and he started extending his spider web out there, right, to his neighborhood. To be more clear, he started having the camarada Scrappy, right? Keep in mind, I didn't know the homie, you know. He just threw Amapil and through Toker's mouth. That was his homie, and he trusted him. And Toker was a bit older than myself, so you know, it's just one of them things when you're in the cell. You just share things with each other, right? So, anyways, I'm not saying that's how Toro got in Eastside Riva, but it's definitely one of the angles, right? And in this day, amongst the MNs, there's a lot of jealousy that plays out. Amongst carnales, it's real rare you run into a pili that is gonna, be happy for the next man, because that's his carnal, right? That's his uh, that's his brother, and more more overall, you're gonna see jealousy play out to the fullest. And anyways, at this time, you know, Tucker started doing his thing. He was doing good, with T and Scrappy on the streets. They were getting things lined up. When it came to work and stuff like that, Toro didn't need nobody, right? That's what he was known for. He was known for weight, you know. Those that know about T know he's a moneymaker, big time. And anyways, as all things will end up, Toro going to Pelican Bay. Then they ended up sending me to Corcoran later on, and Toker, he went out to Centinela, right? But throughout the system, you keep hearing them doing their thing. You know, that's one thing, that it's a small world, like I stated before. You tend to hear, if homie's doing good, and definitely when a homie does bad, right? It circles around a lot faster. But anyways, in Corcoran, Shadow came down from the bay, you could say on a layover, and basically stated, or just said, that the homie Toker was still doing his thing with Toro, and Scrappy was out there, and everything was cool. When we hit, when I got validated, I had B yard. In B yard, there was a homie, Weasel from Isa Riva. So, it's a lot different when you have a celly that you really get along with. You tend to want to hear about the individual, right? And more so because every time you hear about him doing things correctly, right? And anyways, the homie had a bunch of time to do. He wasn't a lifer though. But to my surprise though, when I head over there and started riding back and forth with Weasel, asking him about Anthony or Toker, he started telling me that basically things weren't looking good. You know, I guess somehow, some way, Turtle felt disrespected, and him and Scrappy and a couple other homies, you know, that I don't know where they're at, so I'll refer from the conversation or their name, but basically they start slinging, and it's normal, right? You're on the street, and you start doing something for an individual, and that individual has the bag, or when it comes to work, you start expanding. As your territory starts getting bigger, another individual starts getting smaller, and you can't really say anything in regards, because Toto's name has some weight in it. For those that don't know, there is different ranks, right? Even though they don't like to speak on it, there is different ranks, and the ones that tend to hold the highest, to be sincere, the ones that got the pipeline to work. And it's not because of the money, it's because of the work, period. And there ain't too many of them like T, to be sincere, right? Oh, I could mention a few, but T's definitely up there. But I guess in this expansion they were doing in Riverside, Turtle felt left out or minimized. I don't know. I don't really know his get down out there in Riverside, to be sincere. Again, I was on B Yard at this time, right in Corcoran, and I had not gone up to the Bay yet. And, I would eventually end up there. And by then, Toro was already in the feds, and Scrappy had been busted, along with, I guess, a bunch of homies from East Riva on their racketeering, you know, them things the Federicos do, right? And anyways, in this, when Scrappy was in county jail right there in San Bernardino or something like that, in the county jail, right? He went to, and Turtle would end up having them whack, for no reason. I mean, it's real obvious now, right? Because right now, as many know, it's Turtle's name's the one that holds a lot of weight out there, at least local wise, right? Because he's from IE. And, but anyways, he had him hit. And, unfortunately, there's those that stay solid to their homeboys. They start questioning. But keep in mind, all rights go out the door when a Billy leaves to the feds and you stay in the state. What I mean by that is it don't take nothing from them in the sense of their status as a member, right? But definitely state police don't want to hear, hey, I wrote to so and so in the feds and I'm curious to know about this, and basically you're putting a Billy in the state on blast in the feds, questioning them, and that's a no-no. And that's basically what Toker was doing. He was asking Toro if he could find out what ended up happening. Why the homie didn't have no smug on him. He had not been sentenced yet, but he had already been hit and removed. Like if he did. And when push came to shove, it was just a grudge, that Turtle had against Toker, to say it like that, or against T, should I say better, right? Against Toro. He would never make it be known out in the open, just like, I guess, Toro asked, and Toro must have known, by him asking and bringing Toker's name into the question. Turtle was going to take it to offense if he really had part in that, or he had taken action the way Toker was saying it. But nah, when it comes to each other, they're going to always hide their hand. They're always going to be like, I don't know what the homie's talking about. There's people there in the state and in the county jails that I put them there in place. They make those decisions. It's not up to me, right? And basically throwing it back on homies. And at the moment, to be honest, I don't know which homies weren't plays, right? But it's just basically a carnal throwing the bolita on them, right? Because T was gonna find out exactly who it was that basically not just went after the homie Scrappy, he went after somebody he put there, and that would eventually get moved on for no reason. Again, Toro was just one of them good individuals. And with this, I'm not saying Turtle wasn't. It's just, you know, that greed, that blindsides. Again, when it comes to each other, they would never say it to each other. It would always show amongst the politics behind the scenes, right? With camaradas, with homies, period. Anyways, later on, right, I'm talking about 2005, 2 years later, yeah, like 2 years later is when Turtle started having workers in Centinela, you know, and I know one homie from Colton, the homie Little. He was supposed to go out there from the Bay, right? He was just doing a shoot term. He wasn't validated or nothing, but he happened to be in our section. And when he was in our section, everybody knows when you're in the linea where you're going and stuff. It's part of you could say the farewells you leave behind to those that will back there validated, right? Well, I want to include myself as to the Billies, but you know, by this time we had done some networking. Turtle, myself, and Terco. So we had that open communication, right, to say it like that. And Turtle would end up getting at me and basically telling me, hey, can you put this on paper for me? This is that. And then he gave me his name, like, hey, could you tell the homie Little when he hits Sentinella, I need him to remove someone that is on there that is not good. He got a tail behind him, Anthony Gutierrez. So when I heard this name, I was like, wait, nah. Remember, I was set up with Toker. I personally seen his paperwork, court transcripts, everything. There was nothing wrong with the homie. He wasn't even holding a position for nobody no more. Because the people he was in touch with had been busted. The main one was Scrappy, and like I said, he got whacked and removed in county jail. And, when Scrappy got removed, it was pretty much supposed to be left alone, right? When the two Pilis talked, and it was talked amongst them that, nah, I don't know what the homie's talking about, there's people in place there that answer up to whatever others there. And I say this because T asked me, like, hey, Chino, you were there in THP. You were sold, and what do you do as a camarada? The first thing is you want to back the homie's play, right? Because you know he's in the right. I'm talking about T, right? Toker and the homie Scrappy. But then again, at the moment I was a double lifer, there was no sight, nearby for us to get out the shoe. And me saying anything other than, hey, I don't know. Once I left Tehachapi, we lost touch, which is a lie, right? I stayed in touch with Toker for, well, that's not important. But I know I would be going against Turtle's word, and I'll just straight up say it, right? Even though I knew what the right thing was, I was a coward. The mind's always going to push for something that is going to keep your career going. You don't see it like that in the moment, just act on it because you know better. But at the same time, what does that say about me or other camaradas? That in order to uphold a Tecato's way of thought, ways, lies, you bury your own. Someone that's good. So, anyways, I would end up telling T, like, look, I went to Corcoran and I was honest, stayed in touch with Ant or Toker, and the homie ever since that happened with Scrappy. I know he's been programming. You're in the feds, he contacts you. Other than that, I haven't heard him being in the mix in no way. I don't know what he had done wrong. Can't speak for Turtle, and I won't. Put myself in that position. So you would basically have to ask Turtle. In other words, I try to hint, but at the same time, not put that rope around my neck. And T didn't. T Toro never asked Turtle. He left it alone because he assumed he was going to bring more pedals, you know. And anyways, when the kite came down, I rewrote it, so many words, stated who it was coming from. I flushed the pilis on my peel, cause if in that moment, or the homie Little would end up getting caught with that on my peel, somewhere down the line, it would be both our butts. So it's always better to get them, rewrite them, and if something ricochets, then you have to man up, stick your chest out, and receive it. That's part of assisting, right? Anyways, to not make this long, Little would end up getting out there. There was other people under Turtle there already. For those that know right now, Sentinella's pretty much Turtle, right? And unfortunately, they would end up hitting Toker too, and they had him go to that side. You know, you do everything good. He has a shitload. Excuse my language, a bunch of time. He's been doing this thing for a while. You know, when push came to shove on Medina, he raised his hand to support and go against and to them battles that were wrong. He did his shoe. He opened up, or yeah, well, he opened up a pipeline from T to Isa Riva, and in their expansion, I guess they took territory that belonged to Turtle, and the Turtle just never forgot of that. And he's not gonna direct that against Toro, right? It would be a losing fight, believe me. But he did so against Scrappy. He waited patiently till he had the opportunity, and then he went against Toker. Took both their careers, Had him go to that side. Well, at least I could sincerely say Toker hated. And nobody could say anything about it. Nobody did. Period. It was that simple. You know, water under the bridge, right? By this time, the feds had taken out, you could say, that pipeline that went to T, and the only ones left that you could say could be blamed for in Turtle's eyes was these two homies, and they've been dealt with wrongly with lies. You see, not myself, no other camarada is gonna dare to ask Turtle, hey, what's the reason? Nah, show me the paperwork on it. See, nowadays they paperwork's thrown out, and yeah, it's the most important thing. Once paperwork's out, there's no discussing it. There's no arguing with it. But you see, when the Billy makes a decision, ain't no one gonna ask for paperwork. Ain't nobody gonna question them. It's why it's gotten to where it's gotten. Now that decisions is, you're walking amongst a Billy. It was just like the feds when I was there right now in the state. They just looked at you and be like, hey, you see that fool? Hey, I don't like him. He's no good, whack him. What are you gonna do? Be like, hey, why? Where's the paper? Nah, you gonna go whack that. Unfortunately, that's how the program is. And it's sad because over jealousy, there went two more good camaradas, and that's the end look. You go inside, and yeah, you could always do your time, but you're always going against the curtain. Curtain. Sorry, everyone. What I mean by that is, first off, you're going against individuals that you might please one and get one of them mad by pleasing the other. That's one. Two, when it comes to camaradas, yeah, there's good camaradas at all times. But at the end of the day, we're in this position to take care of what a member says. That's how the structure dictates it. Is it right? No, it's wrong, but it's what's said. Believe me, I've been guilty of it a lot. I'm not painting myself to be a Santa Maria de Cancuta or anything. But that's the end look. You gotta go in there, do know all that when you're in your neighborhood enjoying your homies, sweating, bleeding for those you grew up with, you learn to love. You go in with those expectations, believe me, but they're not there. Those you swear loyalty to inside, you know, well, I'll just say it like this. I won't put a blame on nobody. The program is set for camaradas to hit a brick wall. Unfortunately, is how many times have you seen that? Oh, this individual had 2 years, and since the Pilis are out, they're the ones being chosen to do hits, to take out people, to pick up a life sentence. When they're in a level 4, 180, there's a lot of lifers. So, that consideration's out the window. Remember, carnalismo only exists in your neighborhood and in your home. So please stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones. Do excuse, I hope I made sense. I've been in the hospital since last night. all day. Doctors treated the lungs, thrombosis, the heart, because it was I went through heart pain, real bad pain, couldn't breathe. Basically, I didn't have no choice, right? And it turns out it's the cancer. It's just getting the best of me, because it wasn't the heart, it wasn't the lungs. They blamed it on the Huskins, and doctors are so ignorant. As I'm laying there going through all these struggles when I first arrived, out of their neck, you hear one tell the other, I don't think he's going to make it past today. And it's like, man, every time, I don't know if it's a test. Me having to hear this from doctors is like, it hits you upside the head. But anyways, thank you, Lord. You know, throughout treatment and stuff, I mellowed out. And, even though it's late, but I'm back home, and I thank God for that. If things are going to happen, let them happen here at home. These hospitals are terrible to end up there. But anyways, I just thought I'd share with everyone. Again, please always stay true to to what you know is true to you. And we all know what's true to us, even though we allowed our mind to play games with us.